Figma plus Tableau. My name is Lindsay Tableau Zen Master and Consultant Design Specialist at Health Data Viz. And today I'm going to share with you how to use text in Figma. And again, as always, specifically how we're going to use Figma to amplify our Tableau dashboards or our Tableau prototyping. So let's get into it. And if you have not seen my prior video on frames, please go check that out. That will help you kind of get started with how to create these dashboards and containers, essentially, to continue to build upon your skills. All right, so I quickly mocked this up. This is our skill number 2, and it's all about text. So we're going to go over fonts, alignment, spacing, using text for titles, using it for prototyping, and charts, as you see here. So this is my mock-up of a plant dashboard. Let's say it's an organization who is selling succulents. I don't know what my love is for them currently, but they're pretty much the only plant I can keep alive. My poor weeping fig tree pretty much hates me every day. So, however, my jade plant is like 20 years old. So there you have it. Anywho, this is all built in Figma. I do essentially things just like this in my real work life. Prototyping in Figma. But we're going to be talking specifically about text, and future videos will likely show you how to build charts and how to create dashboards pretty quickly. All right, so let's get started. So I'm going to just create a new frame that we can use to build this, just to give us myself something to work in. Okay, so now I have my spot. This is not going to look pretty. We're just really going to go over some basics, and you'll kind of get the idea of how I built what I built above. All right, so up at the top left up here, we have our text tool. I can click that, and now you'll see I have my cursor that shows me I'm going to build a text box. I can drag that, make a text box. Obviously, I can change the width and height of it. I don't really bother with that yet until I know what the heck I'm going to write. But let's say, again, so let's just pretend I'm making this really nice dashboard, and I'm going to have some great title of, let's see, succulent plant sales dashboard. Super fancy. All right. So once we have this, what you'll notice is the size of your frame. Now, I have made my frame 1200 by 800, kind of a standard dashboard size for me. And whenever I prototype in Tableau, I try to keep things what I would do in Tableau, meaning if I usually have a 12-point font for a header, or if I usually have a 20-point font for a title, I try to mock that up here so I get the sense of exactly how it's going to look. And this is particularly useful when prototyping for clients. So I'm going to just bump this up to 24, and now I can see I have my text. Now in Figma, you'll have many options for fonts. Like, honestly, it's very overwhelming. You know, you can go through this for forever. I tend to find a few I like, and I do that usually by quickly, if you highlight your text and then just start tabbing down with your down arrow, you can kind of go through these pretty quickly and just find something you might like. You can always Google these. I think these are all Google fonts. If you have fonts embedded on your current computer, like Adobe fonts, those will show up here too. So you kind of get Figma plus whatever else you have. So again, there's probably hundreds in here. So for the purposes of this, I'm gonna let's just grab like a regular standard one. Good old Avenir. All right, so the way text works, so this whole section over here is your text section. Obviously, you have your font, and then if the font has different styles, you'll find them here, where you can change this to a heavy, bold, things like that, light, etc. Now, not all fonts come with the options, so you'll notice if I click, I don't know, snake up, nah, of course that one has one. You'll see like here, bad script, that doesn't have anything other than regular, so I have no other options. So as you go through, you'll kind of see how these work. Right, so let's go back to this one. Next, obviously, is our size. Now, the great thing about Figma is despite having just general sizes, of course, you can pick whatever you want. I mean, I can pick 33 if I want, and that's 323, not what I meant, but you get the idea that you can change and play with that as you see fit. And keep in mind that the size of the font is obviously, it's a standard font size. So the bigger, obviously, you make your frame, or the further out you are, right, this text might look small, but always keep in mind how far away you are from something, or how big these things. And I always use my pixel to really understand the size. You know, you don't want to build just because you zoomed out in your canvas and you make a text that's like, 300 font. That's kind of unnecessary. Okay, so that is our font size. The things that are most important, so we do have letter spacing and line height. I actually don't use those, at least for the purposes of Tableau. That's not to say there's not use for that. You can, mess around with these things and separate out the words, the letters, sorry, which is actually really cool because I can't do that in many other platforms. They don't allow you to adjust the spacing between the actual letters within font. So that is pretty cool. And same with the line height. So let's just put this back to whatever it was. Then we have the spacing between paragraphs, so when you hit enter. And this is what I use a lot in my prototyping in Tableau. I'll show you that in a second. Then over here we have, oh, okay, that's just like auto stuff. I don't use that either. Then I have your alignment. Now, if you click this little ellipse, you actually get more options because Justify doesn't show up here as one of your top 3, but it is available. So I usually are using that maybe in Tableau if I'm making custom text here first. And you also have additional things. So the underlining is here, a strike through. If you're making lists and bullets, I mean, it shows you right here, which is pretty cool. Indents. And then I also really like that you have your case. So I can quickly just make this all uppercase instead of typing it out that way. So they give you the ability to really change this no matter how you originally typed it. So this is the nothing is meaning this is how you typed it, and then you can change it. I think that is just fantastic. I don't see that on a lot of other platforms. And obviously any of the number things and some other letter forms, which I don't use and I don't think they're pretty fancy. And I love that it gives you this preview, of whatever you've done, so you can kind of get a sense. All right, so that's all what you have here. You also have, if you want it to be at the top of your shape, let me get rid of that. The top of your space, and you'll see this if I make this bigger. The middle, the bottom, the top. This is really helpful when you're aligning things, which I'm going to show in a second, because if you have one thing at the top and one thing at the bottom and you're aligning your objects, for example, if I had these this way, if I click both of these, I've clicked both my objects, and I align them up here, align vertical centers, they're already aligned, and you'll see the text doesn't line up. I can make those both in the center, and obviously now, watch this, if I click them both and align it, now we get them all aligned. Okay. I'll go over that more in detail in a second. So now that we have our title. Now I'm not going to build out these charts necessarily, but I want to show you how best to kind of utilize text, quickly aligning things, quickly spacing things out, and how I've found the best way to do this. So the first thing here is when you're building something like a chart, or you want to build a number of text words or what have you, and space them out evenly, there's a couple ways you can do that. So the first is, let's just do plant. All right, we're just going to pretend instead of typing all these out. There's a couple ways we can do this. Zoom in here. All right, so let's just say instead I can do one word, and I can click Option and drag or Alt drag, at least on a Mac, and it'll automatically copy that. You can also press Command D, and it will also copy. Once you've dragged it to a particular place, it'll keep going the same distance you've done. So yeah, there's one way I can type out a bunch of plants, and then I can edit these, and they're all spaced evenly. The other way to do this would be like, yeah, I can just, drag another text box, write plant 2, and then another one, plant 3, and I can like do these all over the place. They don't have to be pretty. And let's do plant, 4. But I really want plant 4 down here. I want plant 1 right here. And now I've got this kind of messy like text situation. If I just click and drag over all of them, I love these alignment things up here. So up here we have align left, align them all left. I can align them all center. No, it must not have them all. There we go. I can align them to the right, top, put them all on top of each other, the middle, bottom, whatever. So let me undo this. All right, so now what I want to do instead is actually align these all. So first I want to distribute them vertically, so they're evenly spaced, and then align them to the left. So you'll see now they're all aligned and they're equally spaced. So that's another way to do text. I mean, you can type stuff up anywhere and then quickly just grab them all and align them to the left, and then this more options gets you to distribute vertical or horizontal depending on what you're doing. So that's another way. The third way, which is the way I prefer, at least for something like building prototypes in Tableau for charts, is I will type out plant 1, plant 2, plant 3, plant 4, plant 5. Now what you'll see is this is already like a default. This is what I used in the last view. Let me change this. So normally it would look like this. What I do is adjust this distance between my paragraphs so that I have them exactly spaced as I want. So what you'll see is up here, let's see if I I'm just gonna grab this bar chart for a second. All right, so let's say, I don't really need all those. One too many. All right, so let's say now I have a bar chart that I'm mocking up. Let's say this was originally 0, right? And I know I need it spaced like this. So I line this up here, and now I want this text box to pretty much like, evenly distribute this way. So you can actually find out the distance between these two and actually set this. I'm kind of lazy like that, and I just guess how far I need to do it, and then I'll start kind of just adjusting too much my distance. That looks pretty good. So at least when I'm prototyping, I'll be able to get this looking really slick. And for a client, I only had to type this out. And if they ever want to change it, I'm only selecting one object that has all of my words in it versus the other example where I had 5 separate text boxes that I have to go in and kind of modify. I find this easy, particularly if they're like, hey, you know what? We're really going to sell another plant. And you're like, all right, I'll just plop that in here. And, add my, another bar down here, or what have you, right? And then I have my prototype there. Okay, so that gets us through kind of fonts, alignment, and the spacing. Now, the two other things I wanted to address, and I kind of lost my, you can also just press Command-Z and undo like everything, which I've realized works for probably a billion different platforms, but I've only used it really consistently in Figma. Just like Tableau, it has kind of infinite back button, which is pretty cool. And if you have, I might as well say, if you have the professional version or what have you, there is like it's a saved copy of your current versions, which is pretty nice. Okay. The next is, so for using it for titles. So the other thing I want to talk about is when you're using maybe some titles in Figma, we're going to say, let's say I do want to use, I'm going to make a cool title in Figma. And honestly, for the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to, I might make this a little crazy just so you can see all the fun things you can do. This does not mean this is best practice. All right, let's see if I can find a fun font. Just wait. No, terrible. Oh man, that's crazy. All right, we'll just use this one. Not necessarily fun, but. All right, so when you're doing, the other things I want to talk about with fonts, and this can be true for anything, whether you're making buttons or titles, but below here you also have your fill and your stroke, effects and export. These are all important because I can obviously, maybe not obviously, but obviously I can change the color of this. Figma has a pretty decent palette. I don't like that you don't get kind of some other like circular options. You can change this to RGB and put them in. Sometimes I like Tableau's circle that I get on my Mac. But anyhow, you can obviously adjust this as you see fit. The other cool thing is, so there's limitless things for filling this color. I can do a linear fill where you have two different colors perhaps that kind of blend together. I'm not going to go into a lot of color here. That'll be a whole different video. But you could do linear, radial, angular, diamond, and I guess you could technically put an image in it if you wanted. We'll go over that in a different one. All right, but for now, let's just keep this to a color. You can also add a stroke. So, here obviously is a black stroke. This might be if you don't have a fill. Here's another quick tip. These little eyeballs turn off something if you want to kind of see what something looks like without it, or you're messing around with one layer and you want to turn the other one off for the moment. Obviously, you can just do strokes by themselves. So I can, do whatever I want for just having the stroke or the outline of the text. So let's turn that back on and let's get rid of. This is the minus sign, and this lower left gets rid of what you just did. Okay, so you can add fill and stroke. Then effects. So I can add drop shadows. You see all I have to do is press the plus, it shows up. This little sun allows you to change it. Keep in mind, this X, Y, and blur are really, they are going to be based on how big something is. Again, how wide and how many pixels, these are pixels, they are. So if you have something super tiny, a 4-pixel drop shadow might be like really big. In this case, I have something that's only 67 pixels high, so these 4 pixels below actually can be pretty significant. When I have larger things, I tend to do a 4 to 4, which puts it off to the side, and a blur of 10. That might look way too much here. It's like extra blurry because this title is not very big. So if I do a blur of 5 and maybe just 2 and 2, I might be able to get just a nice little drop shadow. It's going to default to just as black with a 25%, but you can do anything. So we can do another color. Note that whenever you pick a new drop shadow color, it's automatically going to go to 100% opacity. So you can change that a little bit, and adjust, as needed. So you get the idea there. Let's see, what else do I want to say about text? Oh, the other thing is certainly with all this, you can, Option, Alt, drag, and duplicate these things. And let's see if I want to do like a little, header. We are rocking sales. You can play with moving things around separately as text boxes. So here's like 2 text boxes. Maybe I want it like extra close or what have you. Or obviously you can press enter and do the same thing. Let's just copy and paste in here. And you can, within one, just as any other kind of platform, within one thing, you can adjust size and adjust this distance. So we have kind of the same thing. It's more going to be a preference of exporting, how you're going to play with things around, if they're going to stick together, or if you want 2 separate objects. It doesn't really matter. Well, it does matter, but it's going to matter to you. And the last thing I kind of want to say about text is just that when something is just an object by itself, you can export the object. So I can just click export and export this text box and save that as a PNG, JPEG, SVG, or PDF. And I can change the export size. So I often do at least 2 times when I'm doing some of the images. Note that the bigger the image, sometimes that can weigh down your Tableau dashboard. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, so that's how you can use titles. Now, technically, if you're just doing a title, you don't really need the frame. It doesn't matter. You're just exporting the object. The frame is helpful if you're exporting like a whole background image with the text within it. All right. And the last thing that pretty much I've shared a little bit already is just to go over kind of using this for prototyping in charts. So I already talked about how to kind of do these headers and space them out. And again, this is the same thing. This is just a bunch of hash marks, and I use this to say, hey, we're going to put numbers here. We don't have numbers right now. We're just prototyping. This is just a proof of concept. So when I do numbers down or anything that can be separated out in this way, I find that way faster. However, if I'm doing charts, obviously these little are individual text boxes because I have to be able to put them at the end of whatever length of my bar is or any other type of chart, which, yes, this can be a little tedious, but I'll show you the quick way that I do this. So let's show this real quick as the last thing if I'm going to make a quick chart. Right, so I'm going to pretend, so I've got my chart. I told you can just do Command D, and then you tell it how far you want to go, and I just go down a couple. And then I just move them around, and let's say these are not in any order, so we're just gonna mess around with it. All right, great. Got my charts. Now, if I go get my text, and I do my little text, and I say this is gonna be a number. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Again, I just do the option drag. Option drag. And you can see how I'm centering these really quickly when it gets to that line where it's centered within the bar. So, this takes me like 5 seconds. It's not that hard when you just copy. It's like the best thing in this is just copy it. It can be like watching paint dry. But boom, like I'm done. Like I just built a chart in like 30 seconds. Prototyping done. And I'm going to bring this to the front so it's in the front. So there we go. There's my chart. And that's how I do using the text and kind of duplicating it down to make a nice prototype. All right. I hope that was helpful. Thanks so much. And stop back again for some more Figma and Tableau skills. All right. Cheers.